I Used to Be Funny 2023. This was another really thought-provoking and quite amazing film. I didn't really know what to expect. The story, the synopsis seemed like it might be good, but it might not be. It's a drama. Wouldn't have watched it if it was horror, but there were some elements of the synopsis that worried me. It was a missing girl, 14-year-old girl, and the protagonist is a former comedian who used to babysit the girl from the age of 12. So there's a series of flashbacks going back over the 2 years, and the story is woven together. It explains what's going on. It all becomes clear by the end of the story, and by then I really loved it. But during it had that element of tension that I thought, oh gosh, is this going to be a really awful film? Some awful things do happen. The main character is Sam Cowell. She's played by Rachel Sennett. As the title explains, she used to be funny. She had a routine. She was a stand-up comedian or comedienne, and as she explains at one point, that means a comedian, but a girl. And she's so clever with her timing and with her explanations, and it's really bobbed. Brilliant feminist comedy. This is where there's a deep, rich level of feminism throughout this story, but it manages to hold back all of the crucial detail until much later in the film. You gradually learn that something is definitely up. I mean, there's something really traumatic has happened. There's all this stuff, there's news reports. This teenage girl's gone missing, and Sam has been looked after by her two flatmates, and they're a couple who are going together, and they're on the comedy circuit as well. They are looking after her, they're very much nurturing her, trying to encourage her, but not pushing her. This is where it's lovely. She's in a lot of difficulty. I mean, it seems like she explains quite early on that, oh, she's had a shower today, she hasn't gone out of the house, the flat, the apartment, but when she does, she wants to do some stand-up. So at one point she goes out with them and goes on stage, but she just can't face it. One of her flatmates deals with this fine. The two flatmates, I thought they were great too. You get to see elements of how they're trying to not push her, and they're trying to ease her back into life in the kindest way, and I love that. But then there's this whole thing about the missing girl, and they know that this is really troubling to Sam. And then in the flashbacks you get to see when Sam meets the girl, she meets Brooke, the teenage girl. She gets vetted by Brooke's father, who's called Cameron, and Brooke's obviously very angry with Sam, and there's this whole strange scenario where she goes to the house, and one of the difficulties I have with this film is the signalling for the separate time frames. So some of the time I was getting really confused. Is this actually the present day, or is this 2 years ago? And that wasn't really that clear to me, and I'd have loved it to have been clearer. And that's really the only criticism I have of this film. I felt it really worked well, and I managed to make sense of it all in the end. But there's this sort of thing where I'm thinking, oh, is this in the past or is this current? And it's sort of muddled in my head because there's these comedy clips on YouTube, her whole past. It even comes up in a court case. Oh, what's happened here? So there's all these different things that have happened. There's this carbon monoxide poisoning event. That's really scary. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, does this really make sense? I don't know. I'm not going to say because it could be crucial. It might give away spoilers. It's really hard to explain. I got really worried about the carbon monoxide scenes. There was once a time where my carbon monoxide monitor went off in my flat about 3 years ago. I just cooked something and I opened all the windows. I had a look at it. It said, please call this number. And I thought, do I want to? Have I just made an awful mistake by cooking? And if I'd open the windows and not let all this smoke out because of what I was cooking. And yet, carbon monoxide is really serious thing. I've since found out, you really should call the number. It's deadly. It can end up in hospital. You can easily kill. You've got to take it seriously. So in this thing, I got very confused because Sam rescues Brooke and then calls the firefighters or the emergency services. And then there's this added complications. There's all the things about her old YouTube videos, and various people have been watching them and trying to unravel the elements of the film. I found difficult, perhaps partly because I've got this face blindness. I cannot easily distinguish some time frames. Probably I missed some of the signals to tell the past from the present. Maybe it's easy for other people. I did figure it out. Fortunately, I was watching it on streaming and that really helped. And once I did figure out, by the end of the film, it was clear. I thought, wow, that's really clever. I just thought how the story, all the tension and the parts of the film that you don't want to reveal were held back until very close to the end. And then it all makes sense. And then, oh gosh, there was stuff, police officers, the fear. Paige, one of Sam's flatmates, mentions ACAB, and there's that element that bringing that into a film. I've got friends who say ACAB. There's a tension about police officers. It's happened a lot in this country, but this story is based in Canada, and yet that's part of the story that got me thinking as well. All the strong women's rights movement, the feminism, the need for safety, the dealing with trauma when something awful happens, it's dealt with so carefully. I mean, any film like this may have triggers, so you may need to consider content warnings. But it's directed and written by Ali Pankhiew. I've never heard of her before, but I'd love to see more of her work. I think it's such a really clever and good film, the way it explains it, the narrative. I'm going to score it 9 out of 10. I really enjoyed it. Kind of reminded me of a couple of the films, but I'm not going to say what they are simply because of the risk of spoilers. This, I feel, is original enough, but there's certain things about it. The way it's held back to the end. I've seen films that are based on women comedians and how hard a time they get. And there's a little element of that in this. It's mentioned, but I think it's more other things about it. And that's all I'm going to say about it now. I think all these films, I may, if I ever get the chance to cover them in follow-up film reviews in which I talk about spoilers, maybe in a live stream. I think it's a great film. Love to know what you think about it. Thanks for watching. Please like if you like this review. Thanks for subscribing. Hope to see you again soon. I'm hoping to increase the pace of how many films I produce. I really appreciate it if you've subscribed recently. Thanks. Bye for now.